It's a show about old people.
I think I'm just starting to get hungover. I was quite drunk before, and I'm already hungover before the end of this, so I'm losing the power of speech. Sorry.
It's kind of like when a band finishes a tour and then they all go away for a couple of months and then they come back and it's like, oof, boy, we're a little rusty.
I've done 20 podcasts and 19 of them have been about my friendship with Zac Efron.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this extra special performance. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to the greatest band in the world. On the triangle, it's everyone's favorite percussionist. It's Mr. Martyn Goodwin-Sharman. And up next, the only kazooist to ever have played Beethoven's Fifth Symphony whilst hanging upside down, Mr. Grant Hutchison. And the man with the heavenly pipes and the potent pens, the modern British cider frontman, it's me, Mr. Gabriel William James Cook. That's right, everybody. This is the Neutral Cider Hotel.
Coming up a little bit later on the show, we'll be chatting with Angry Orchard's head cider maker, Ron Burk, and we'll wrap things up with listeners' questions.
Wow. Did you know about this, Martin?
No, this is all new to me. I don't write any of these jokes.
I just decided it'd be a bit fun to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, how are you guys doing? How you doing, Gabe?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, been a bit dull, really. Nothing much going on. Just sort of chipping away, keeping things ticking on. You know, same in, same out. Apparently, I can't say the word symphony. That's the only one I found. I said symphony,
Sympathy. Yeah.
Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, but you know,
Drunk rock star appeal. You sounded like, you sounded flash.
Yeah,
You sounded flash.
refreshed.
Oh, but Grant, how you been?
How have I been? Good. Yeah.
Oh, guys, he's actually answered back. Scott, you can delete all those pre-recorded ones that we'd edited and used of
Good.
Grant in case he
Yeah.
didn't turn up.
I love this. I love this. I love this.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Grant, you're back. We love you.
But yeah, Ryan in the interview is going to be like, oh yeah, and what do you guys think of drinks? And you're just going to say, good, yeah, to everything there. And he's going to have no idea.
I am.
Right.
I'm going to do that.
But yeah, no, how you been? What you been up to, bud?
You know, catching up on my favourite podcast on a weekly basis, listening to my drunk self. It's just been interesting. Thanks for all those edits, Scott.
but to give some context to that,
yeah, which I feel like you could have given about 6 weeks ago when we first started putting these Patreon things out. But yeah, I'll carry on you go.
yeah, these episodes, and in particular the ones where the slurring is most, were recorded sometimes after midnight, after we'd recorded a whole 4 or 5 hour show and drank on that show. And I mean, the Ross on Y one, that's with 7% ciders after a cider episode.
1.5 litres potentially of, you know, Ross and Martyn. Everyone knows Ross and Martyn doesn't do low ABV cider. It's always fairly intense and punchy. So,
well, yeah, and they were unmarked.
Yeah,
unmarked. Yeah, Jesus
unmarked
Christ.
cider.
But so, I think you came off well. I don't think I was listening to it going like, oh God, he's awful here. No less than you were throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you think. I'm interested to see Kath at the cider salon at the weekend. she might not feel the same. Kath, can I publicly apologise for my rudeness? I'm extremely embarrassed.
The chief Foxwelpian has. Well, let's be fair.
But wait. Are you changing your tune? Are you a fan of Foxwhelp now?
That's not what I said. I just think there wasn't really there wasn't a case for profanities and rudeness on that level. But I would blame Albert, basically.
Yeah, Albert.
This is the worst apology. Oh no, you just blamed someone else.
Oh god. Anyway, how are you guys?
Yeah, good to have you back. I have literally been making. So the plan was this year to be making some cider in the garden, really, but with the amount of money, effort, and everything like that, we need to do up our kitchen. So that's now on the back burner. And I was like, I need to make something. So I've just done a big old batch of hot sauce. So there's 20 liters of hot sauce. And I'll tell you a quick one for now that you got to keep them under the brine solution. Otherwise, they get like a certain yeast on them if they ferment, and it gets a bit weird and cheesy. So I was like submerging it all down, and it was all good. And then I put in the last little secret ingredient, and I pushed down. And I've got Naga chilies in there, which are like the hottest naturally occurring pepper that hasn't been cultivated. And Hannah will tell you, I was driving and I had to stop because my hands were shaking from being on fire. I was literally going, wow.
Did you not have gloves on?
What do you think? What do you think this guy thought would be a good idea to do?
Oh,
chop 6 kg of the hottest chilies.
And then wipe your eyes.
You know what? No up there, no down there, no nothing. Just unadulterated hand pain. So full for me for being stupid, but I'm not that stupid, it turns out. So
Title of the episode.
So did Hannah take over the driving? Is that what happened? Or were you somewhere nice you could just stop and cool your hands down for a little while?
So as a good deed, I was driving her to her, there's a woman who can't trim her cat's nails, elderly lady. So Hannah does her cat's nails for her. So I drove her there. So we pulled over and she was looking at me like, are we going to go? Because I might be late. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll be fine. Oh no, I'm not on fire. But I took a tub of cocoa butter in the car thinking this will neutralize it. So all I did was covered my hands. I'm a vegan, so I haven't got milk hanging around, have I? And I don't think oat milk really does it. So I just doused it in this like moisturizer. Couldn't grab the steering wheel. It's just like lubed up.
Your hands just slipping around the wheel.
I know. What is it in the milk that's a neutralizer?
I think it's just like fat. I don't know. All I know is when your hands are burning, you don't go, shall I Google it to see? I was like, I'm not wasting my expensive oat milk. I'll use this old cocoa shea butter moisturizer. Oh, God. As I say it, I realise how it sounds. So we'll move on and ask Gabe how his week has been.
Well, not as entertaining as that, that's for sure. No shea butter involved. I actually finished Modern British Cider.
Whoa! I'm glad I was here for that.
So obviously I proclaimed I've finished Modern British Cider about 3 months ago. I hadn't. Sorry, thank you. I just finished the words. I've now been working with the wonderful designer Dale over Zoom to make it look really pretty because, you know, the words are, I was going to say they're fairly boring. They're very, very entertaining and interesting, but you need the imagery in order to bring it to life. So we've been working really hard and it went off to the printers yesterday.
How does that feel as like the second book? Because it's not got that like, you've got to know the steps, but surely it's got to feel even bigger now because like, how is it? How does it feel?
The awkward second album kind of syndrome. It's definitely a more mature mature book.
Someone's announced they've got a ghostwriter, haven't they?
Whoops. Sorry.
Matt Curtis's words are shit. Oh, I shouldn't have given it away.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit more grown up, and it might, in a way, it might not appeal so much to the casual person who's just kind of flicked through, because it delves into sort of meaty topics and some things. But I think it's a really important book. It's like maybe a more important book than Ciderology was, and I think just the natural progression for what I want to say and sort of what my cider experiences are all about.
I like the idea that the back now has the quote on it. A really important book, maybe more important than Ciderology by Gabe Cook. From Gabe Cook. But
nice.
I will say, what you've read to us in private, I think the charm and whimsy of the first book are there, but also you clearly know who you are more now. And listening to it, when I was like, mate, yeah, this is banging. So I can't wait to read it. Really excited.
Well, thank you very much.
Were you aware that of an audience that you were writing for this time, as opposed to last time? When you reference the album, that's sometimes something that comes up in music. Is like, okay, well, now you might have a picture of who your fans are and who's buying it, and does that affect your
these guys?
Both of them, yeah.
No, but not even just that. But you know what I mean? Like there is, because there is, since you wrote Ciderology, now there is more of a base of cider drinkers who will, it's going to sound really bad about Ciderology, but who will go out and buy it straight away, or have already ordered a copy. Did you write for them, or are you still writing for yourself?
Absolutely not. You'll as when you read it cover to cover, obviously, Grant. Or maybe, as producer Scott has been encouraging me to do the audiobook version, so you can listen to it whilst you're doing your deliveries.
I mean, you should.
Maybe I should.
Have you got a microphone? Do you have recording stuff?
I do. I just don't. I just generally don't use it that often. I generally use it as a prop in the background of whenever I am doing some kind of online recording.
The only thing with an audiobook is you can't prop anything up with that, can you?
This is semi-true. No, genuinely, if Ciderology was kind of my slightly gratuitous love letter to cider, then this Modern British Cider is it's the grown-up conversation. It's things that I really want to say. It's once again, it's all about me and what I want to do and want to say. And these are I think it's putting to paper things that are often talked about within cider community, and I just wanted to really distill everything down and to give it, and just to say everything that I probably wanted to say on the topic. So there's some meaty stuff in there, some political stuff in there. There's
political stuff.
Well, a political as in
spoiler alerts. Don't give it away. He has to buy the book.
Yeah. Legislative aspects to things, if not necessarily party political. And a bit of it's a real celebration of just how amazing cider is and how fantastic cider can be, but also a slight sort of not so lamentation, but kind of like pointing out different factions and sectors within cider that need to, I don't know, just sort their shit out, and just
the Foxwelpians, yeah.
Well, especially them, they're so subversive, and they're causing so much issue within the industry. Ultimately, it comes down to a plea for everybody working under the big tent and working together for the better of cider. So it does come around to a go cider kind of end. So yeah, I'm very excited and utterly terrified for everybody to read it. But yeah, it's good to be out there, and it's going to be fascinating to see what people's responses are. And in true fashion, I am sort of fairly in the middle, on the fence, as Grant well knows. I'd like to sit with my buttocks firmly on the fence. Well, yeah, kind of, because for the good of cider,
Well, for the listener, go on, Scott.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Gabe, do you have a release date for Modern British Cider by Gabe Cook?
Ooh. Yes, I do. It's Monday, the 6th of September is when it's available to it. It is available to pre-order right now. If you head to www.shop.camera, that's camra.org.uk, you can pre-order now.
Or just go to the Linktree link in the Instagram page.
Oh, that's
for
right.
Neutral Cider
Now,
Hotel or Ciderologist.
it's amazing.
It'll be in the show notes.
It's that's very kind, everybody. Thank you. Yes, producer Scott, big thanks to you for introducing me to the wonderful world of technology. It's great, isn't it? What you can do these days on the old interweb. And I'm going to be being announced very shortly. A series of UK-wide events, London, Leeds, and Manchester, and Bristol, and Herefordshire, and very much
Wales.
Yeah, my favourite Celts, the Welsh. They're going to be in there. No, I mean no great discussions as yet, but October, I think I will be venturing north of the border to a wonderful little seasidey village, to Scotland's, in fact, Britain's premier cider shop, Able.
Oh God, where is it? Here it is.
Oh, you deleted me. All right, okay.
No, I'm just so not used to doing this. I've completely forgotten how to push a button. Apparently,
You've not been here, Grant, but when you were here, you didn't even want to fucking talk about it. So that's why it's not on the board.
Well, now I know how hard it is, so let's fucking mention it every 20 seconds, please.
Oh, dude, no, it is good to hear Abel mentioned back on the show.
Absolutely. In fact, I think my sub-editor came and paid a visit and
really?
and had a jolly good time. Bought a bottle or two from Jay, I do believe.
At Abel?
Excellent.
Yeah,
Fucking brilliant.
he is Scottish. They move about.
Well, he'll be able to buy modern British cider at Abel soon.
I thought you were about to say they read. It's like,
I would never.
I don't know, Gabe. I don't know. Maybe not you. No. I feel like it kind of maybe crossed your mind though, because you stumbled over
tone, Grant. It's so nice.
God, no one can see this, but you leaned in like, what's he fucking thinking? Like it proper. No,
because you went, they do, and I was like, what's it? It's like, it's as if you were thinking, because you do it all the time when you're thinking, you might say something a bit risky and you're like, oh no, I can't do that, I'm Gabe Cook. And it felt like one of those times where you're like, I'm going to really lay in, but no. No, that's just me being unkind again.
That's okay. I'll just charge a bit of extra for the appearance fee at Able, don't worry. All right, everybody, that's it for our opening gambit. Now let's see what's happening in the news. And now here at the Neutral Cider Hotel, it's time for this week's news. And, well, top of the list for me was the USA has had its de facto National Cider Championships, and it's called the Great Lakes International Cider and Perry Competition, SNAPI. So they've reduced it down to Glint Cap. Good old Glint Cap. And, it is the world's largest cider competition. I've got the stats. There were 1,562... What? No, I'm talking rubbish. 1,561. 1,561 different entries. Different products entered. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. Split across commercial and non-commercial. Two different sort of sides of the competition.
All North America.
Solely for the USA. I think anybody's allowed to enter.
Right.
The majority are USA. And we... they split it out by different sort of styles, by category, modern and heritage and rosé and traditional, and all the different sort of flavors and things like that. And I pulled out a few sort of interesting ones here. the sort of traditional category, which tends to be with more tannic fruit. Herefordshire producer Celtic Marches with their Abrahal's Vintage won that category.
Hey,
So they pick an outright winner from each one. Is that
They
how it
do.
works?
So
Right.
every cider is awarded, is judged to a medal standard, whether it's gold, silver, bronze, or no medal at all. And then they also do like a first, second, and third.
Okay.
Out of which they thought were the best, and so that was the best. Also representing Herefordshire, Once Upon a Tree came first in the traditional Perry category. So congratulations to them. Those are the only two Brits that sort of did well. Other people who are associated with the show, good old Guidon at Original Sin got a gold medal for Martin.
Newtown Pippi.
Wow.
That's right.
Was it? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I gotta say, did he win gold for that, or was it like the outright medal?
It was not first place, but it was a gold medal.
Okay, as long as I've got gold medal taste, that's all I wanted to know.
You're pure gold, my friend.
This is
You
a
are
vehicle for
pure
me to feel good.
gold.
This whole podcast is an illusion designed to make me feel validated. So thanks, Guidon, for giving me one of the best ciders I've ever had. And I'm glad the Glint Cat posse agree.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, nice.
Oh,
yeah.
that was
Wiggity,
so
wiggity, wiggity, whack.
smooth like butter.
Nice. Yeah, still got it.
Yep.
Crikey. There were a few other bits that sort of popped out as standing out. My favourite cider maker name, Dead Horse Cider Company.
Doesn't make you want to fill a glass, does it?
Well, ironically, they came like first, second, or third in the rosé category for Life is Rosé. Maybe not if you're the Dead Horse. I don't know. What can I say? And in the speciality category, this one's for you, Grant.
Here we go.
Strawberry Mojito Cider from Bauman's in Oregon, who actually, that wasn't the only trophy, the only medal and trophy that they won. They won several, so they won the champion small cider producer, Christine Bauman, and the team just outside Salem in Oregon. Very nice people, very good cider makers. The medium scale producer winner was Uncle John's Hard Cider of Michigan, Mike Beck and the team there. It's an amazing place. And the large cider maker champion was Angry Orchard, which neatly ties us into our guest for later on. So yeah, huge competition. I've had the privilege of judging there a few years back in Grand Rapids, and it's good fun.
It's amazing that an event that's good wasn't cancelled, because I thought all good cider events were cancelled, just like our live show. I that's just my thinking.
What, just a standard? Like,
Yeah.
If
Like,
it's good,
if you're good,
can't happen.
yeah,
Can't happen.
If there were lots of people attending, they cancelled it. That's what happened
Yeah,
here
this is
in
it.
the UK.
It's like the better the event was going to be, the more popular, the more people, the more press scrutiny. It just can't happen because we're in this weird inverse world at the moment.
Yeah, they couldn't risk a scramble.
It's true. There were some barricades going up at the Hen and Chicken. Like, oh shit! It's gonna be carnage on North Street. Yeah.
Next time.
Well, there we go. Hey, look, this is we live in strange times. Everybody, these are tough times, and the world's just not ready for the live show just yet. But it's gonna come. Oh yes.
oh my God,
It's going to come.
Yes.
So apparently, actually, there are one or two events going ahead. What have we pulled out? What have we seen? Friends of the show.
yeah, friends of the show. So, number one, Biffy Clyro. They've got Dreamland Leeds Reading Fest, but I'm assuming, especially Reading and Leeds, will be cancelled because they're massive events as well, because that's what happens to all massive events. And Def Cab for Cutie. They've got a tour through America in September, but again, probably cancelled because all great
Yeah,
events.
because I think they sold too many tickets for that one. So it's definitely
Hen and
gonna
Chicken, how are you doing
get
tonight?
pulled. Biffy are playing Glasgow on the 9th of September, and I'm considering going. It's an outdoors. It's a gig on the Green. It's Glasgow Green. Sorry, it's outdoor. So yeah, I might. I'm not sure about a sort of small sweaty room. Although currently saying
You record a podcast in it.
We've got. Well, I know. I was just going to say we've got all the heating on to dry everything for for coming down to the cider salon, and because we've had to wash everything because Freddie, our dog, brought in fucking chiggers, so we're having an awful time here.
Wait, I brought in what? Sorry,
Chiggers. They're harvest mites. And apparently
not Keith Chegwin.
Not Cheggers. No.
I don't know what either of those things.
They're
This is as esoteric as it gets. All the American listeners who have tuned into the Angry Orchard episode going, oh no, I know what chiggers are. Also cheggers. Go on, tell us what these are, because I don't even know what they are.
They're
Grant.
harvest mites. Apparently harmless, but yeah, they do bite and they're a pain in the arse, and they're so small they can't be seen with the naked eye. Much like when Checkers did Naked Jungle.
What has this become? You come back for one episode in, and this is just
so
devolved.
warm in here. I'm sat in front of the radiator. I think I'm losing my mind.
Well, I was going to say, first of all, for those of you on this in the USA who don't know who Cheggers is, Keith Chegwin was a popular TV presenter in the UK off of the 1980s and 90s. Well, there we go. That's it. All right, everybody, that'll do it for the news. Now, let's get on to our chat with Ryan Burk from Angry Orchard. Now, everybody, it's time to bring on our special guest. And this week, we're welcoming one of the most important voices in US cider making. Growing up in the apple country of Western New York State and having tinkered with home fermentation, he got his big break working for Virtue Cider in Chicago more than a decade ago, before becoming the head cider maker at the USA's largest producer, the Boston Beer Company-owned Angry Orchard. Famed for collaborations with some of the world's best producers, including Neutral Cider Hotel regular Mr. Tom Oliver, and for winning countless awards. Today's guest is a tireless advocate for cider and has been a board member of the American Cider Association since 2014. Checking into the hotel today, it's Ryan Burk from Angry Orchard.
Hello.
Only took us a year.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Gabe, I'm pretty sure Gabe said, oh yeah, I'll text Ryan on like episode 2. Yeah. Finally.
Do you know what? I'm glad we didn't though. Fucking hell, that would have not gone to air. So thank fuck we're here.
I was waiting for the big in-person event. So
True.
Sad to not be in person with you guys. It's quite a bummer.
It's basically the fact that you've decided not to turn up is pretty much the primary reason why we are not going ahead. You know, if we can't get Ryan Burk, what is the point in living? Basically, you know, what is the point? It's quite an existential question, but what is the point? I
mean, I feel like that's a bit extreme, but I will. I understand how you feel, but I am saddened every day that I don't get a chance to get over and be with you guys. It is coming over to England is and spending time with you guys is a highlight of my year. Usually 4 or 5 times a year, and so to not come over at all has been a bit of a bummer.
Well, last cider salon, I think my favorite drink was the Supernatural out of all of it, and it's just such an easy, fucking beautiful cider. without giving it away to us, but what kind of ciders are you bringing this year, or would you have brought in person but are going to be there?
Oh, that's a good question.
Thank you. Did some
Probably,
research.
yeah. What would I have brought? I would have probably brought. Oh, I would have brought Supernatural because I know you do love it, and we do have a newer vintage. So, although it's more or less the same, so I definitely would have brought that for you. Probably the new our new Edu, which is the cider we make in homage to Asturias. I've been working on that profile for 10 years now. And it's the last couple of years has been really good, but this particular bottling is exactly what I want, where I wanted it to be. So I'm pretty proud of it. I sort of joke that I can retire now. And it did the thing I was going to do was just like perfect that style of cider making. And we'll see. I don't know if I perfected it. I did it great this year. Let's see what happens next year. But I definitely would have brought that along. And we've done some method champenois or method traditional single varieties, of which you've had some of those single varieties, Newtown Pippin, Baldwin, those things. So we those same vintages that you've had, we laid down on Lee's back then. So I think those 2018 vintages,
18s.
the last time you drank them. And so we've just disgorged them. And are finally putting them on sale, and they're spectacular. And I would say, stand up to some of the finer sparkling wines I've had. And I think it's a testament to what cider can do in the bottle. It's just spectacular. So
what is it that you've done with the Edu specifically to try and create that same flavor that you get in Asturias?
Yeah, so the challenge that we have is the speed at which people drink said cider. In Asturias, it is, comes out of the barrel, goes into the bottles, is poured all over the floor the next day, and it moves pretty quick. Not to say that there's not bottles sitting around, but in our case, it doesn't move the same way. We don't have the same culture, although we try to, bring excitement to it by serving it in a traditional way. So in order to do what I want to do, which is keep it natural, keep out the sulfites, put a cork in it, try to kind of keep it as traditional as I can. Without using the bottle, which is like my next step. I was told that I couldn't get the bottle, and then I've been told that I can get the bottle. And it was a bit of like a blessing thing from Samuel Trabanco. He said that I could use this bottle. So now I found a way to get the bottle. So maybe that'll be when I retire.
You keep talking about retiring. There's a lot of talk of leaving this.
Now that I've done the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast, what more is there?
You can reverse out of here.
Well, if this is the end, and this is amazing. This could be exclusive. This is the Ryan Burker's time. If this is the end, let's go back to the beginning, because you've talked about some wonderful things, some technical things. Fantastic Asturian cider and the unique things about that, and bottle fermented. Tell us a little about how you got into this kind of, the position that you hold is a significant one within US and global kind of cider making. But, your journey to this point isn't through being like a classically trained winemaker like many are, or being like a technical brewer. Tell us, kind of briefly, how did you get to this point, and what are the influences that have brought you along?
Okay. Well, to be clear, I didn't answer the last question, but I'm happy to move on.
That's okay.
Maybe we'll come back to that. I'm not any of those things, although maybe I am now, but I didn't walk in the door with much more than my palate and a certain level of nerdery. And I guess the just being comfortable around food, fermentation, and certainly apples, just by nature of where I come from. And I guess a certain amount of excitement and pride too, that there was an opportunity to engage with where I'm from and that part of my life, which I would be honest, as soon as I turned 18, I got the hell out of, and I was city bound, and I sort of stayed city bound until ultimately I became rural bound, and that's where I'm back. And in fact, I'm not even, I was in rural Michigan. Now I'm back in rural New York. So yeah, I learned, I was actually just back home, last week with the people who did introduce me to cider production at a pretty young age. My friend, the family is the Andresses. They have a farm called Fruition Farm, a few hundred acres of apples in Sodus, New York. And I spent probably 50% of my time on that farm growing up. It's sort of my second family. And Peter's the youngest, and my age, who's now started a cider company, which is pretty awesome. And I've been doing a lot of advising with him on how to get that up and off the ground, which has been a lot of fun. But his older brother, Eric, is the first person to introduce me to cider production. And I was maybe somewhere between 10 and 15. I don't know where in there. But hand crank press, the old wooden hand crank press. And I didn't know really while I was watching it what was happening, but I learned quickly thereafter what was going to happen. And that's that cider was going to be, that juice was going to sit around and get bubbly, and it was sort of Eric doing something bad, if you will. But I started to know about it at that time, and then you just it's like you see the same car that you have, and then all of a sudden you see the car everywhere. Same idea. I just started to see it, and then realized that in this apple growing community that I was raised in, the people were making cider all over the place, the older set. So I became aware of it and started to play around with it too, in a sort of nefarious and illegal way. Anyway, that got me into home brewing in college. And then I got really nerdy on that up until the point at which I met Greg Hall when he was starting Virtue, and more or less just had a conversation with him about where I was from and what I knew. And
you mentioned right at the start there, you mentioned like fermentation as a thing being something that drew you in, which
what is that?
Weirdly, not a lot of cider makers like mention that word as something, because it's sort of scientific and maybe has a different a certain amount of nerdery attached to it. But what is it? And I know that your interest in it isn't just exclusive to apples, so what is it about the process of fermentation that really drew you in?
Yeah, I mean, what the fermentation that I do with my hands, either for work or for fun, is obviously cider. But then I love fermenting foods and preservation. So I think like my earliest interest is definitely around, even though I was looking at cider and playing around with cider in high school, I was more interested in food, and like preservation of food. And I was a vegetarian starting at like age 12 or 13. And that kind of that sort of took me in that direction. At the time it was just, back in my day, it was so hard to be a vegetarian, but it wasn't as easy as it is today. As many vegetarian restaurants. Is this
one of
options.
the founding father vegetarians, Martyn does good impressions of him.
Don't bring me into this. Let him fucking finish.
Okay, sorry.
So I that being a vegetarian got me into looking beyond American quote unquote food. And I was looking to the South, I was looking to Asia. I was looking at those flavors, Korean flavors, Indian flavors, Japanese, and there's just a lot of fermentation in that cuisine. And so that's really where my first interest to really get into it. And how can I do that? How can I cook that way? How can I get those ingredients? How can I preserve those things? And I maintain that interest to this day. I think most days I'd much rather be tending to my my garden, and getting ready to like can most of it and ferment most of it and make sauces. And I just geek for that.
So retirement basically is what you're saying.
And
retirement.
now weed's legal. So
yeah,
You are
fermented
the,
weed.
the arch entrepreneur.
Fermented weed. Oh.
We've heard everything now. There was also a step when music was really important to your life, and music's obviously something that's important to this podcast. Did music? How has music informed? I don't know, any of your like approach to life or things, or like what part does it play?
Oh, big time. I mean, I really like got into like vegan vegetarianism because of the punk rock scene that I grew up in, which is, upstate New York is a hotbed for straight edge vegan hardcore. So, that was a major influence, and I stayed a vegetarian. Not vegan. I stayed a vegetarian until I was a cider maker, and into my cider making years. It took me a couple years to finally break down and realize that cider and pig is maybe like one of the reasons to live. And why should I deny myself a reason to live? But yeah, I think that scene and I think the drive that it puts, at least in certain people, and the DIY culture associated with it influences me all the time, and to this day, on just like how I like to get things done, and like where I feel comfortable, and like
I'm just interested to see to know where Angry Orchard fits into that. Because I'm a corporate guy now. I can't be. I can't be a punk.
Oh, he said it. We got him on tape. We got him. That's it.
No, but there's we've got Brewdog over here that was like made this whole thing out of punk, and like that. Those things have a natural backlash, and it's just more of a kind of personal question of what like how that feels.
It's a reasonable question. And yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think punk is something for me to advertise, but I think it is within me, and I could tell you for sure I'm an outlier here on a lot of things, and I think that's one of the reasons they like me. Maybe someone will listen to this and tell me that's not true, and I'll lose my job for saying that. But I don't think so. So. The way that I have always thought about it is, I guess there's Rage Against the Machine, and then there's like Get Into the Machine. And for me to do what I wanted to do for my vision of cider, this is where I had to be to do it, because I already did a thing before I came here. I did Virtue before I came here, and that was a big moment. And we fucked a lot of things up, and there's a lot of bad stuff to say about that. But I think ultimately, like, we did push cider in a particular direction, and there was a lot of successes. That would be a whole other podcast and a whole different story. But when I left there, I was either going to do my own thing, which would have been a much smaller opportunity. And I didn't plan for this to happen. That someone knocked on my door and this happened. And when I saw what the opportunity was to do in my home state, where I'm from, a place that I care about, with people that I care about, it was a pretty easy decision to make, to get the loudest microphone and bring the most righteous story to that microphone that I possibly could. And I've done that here for 5 years. And I said a lot of things that maybe wouldn't have been said to a lot of people that wouldn't have heard it otherwise. And that's punk to me. And I don't feel as though I haven't sold out. I certainly bought in a little bit. And I still, there's things that I don't necessarily agree with. And you won't see my name attached to them, and I'm not, I do what I think is right. I also I don't think it's wrong to make something for everybody and try to make that thing as good as it possibly can be. Like, I find that to be righteous. I swing a righteous sword on a lot of things. That's something that people say about me here. And sometimes I swing and a miss. Sometimes I live on an island about it. But I do think there's something good and great about making something for everyone, the general person. Yeah. But I also make the nerdiest thing that only I like, or like you nerds like.
That looks like a beer. Do you make beer as well? It
is a beer. I would just
we got him. We got him.
Shakara.
Yeah. I find ways to like keep true to myself in what I do, and like turning a 60-acre orchard from Red Delicious to Yarlington Mill is a thing I got to do, and I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. I get to talk about red fleshed apples in global media that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. And those are my stories. Like, those aren't, the brand team here wasn't like, I know about red fleshed apples and where to find them. I was like the opposite. I know where they are. Let's find them, talk about them, make it this story. Let's talk about varietals. Let's say bittersweet on the packaging. Let's do everything we can to bring some authenticity in cider to the average cider drinker so that we can move shit forward a little bit,
Well, you also did allude to some fuck ups, and I think it would be amiss of us not to say, come on, give us a fuck up example.
Well, my biggest fermentation fuck up there is it ultimately is like been a great motivator for me over time. And that is an attempt at making a Spanish style cider 10 years ago, which at the time we were calling, I think, it was called Sidra de Nava, which tasted like anything but a cider from Nava in Asturias. It was made of limited understanding in both, professional fermentation and also a limited opportunity at taste profile research. So like just tasting like the couple bottles you could get at the time, and they were probably no one had shown an interest in those ever. So they could have been sitting in Chicago.
How old were they?
Yeah, they could have been 10 years old. They tasted like, straight vinegar. They were just...
Do you know what, though? There's a lot of breweries that their recipes for IPAs were designed on their love of American beers, but they were American beers that were old when they got here. So there was loads of genuine beers that I drank that I was like, whoa, these American styles, they're so caramelly and they taste like nothing. And so the limited understanding is forgivable. But did you take that example to anyone in Asturias and be like, I've made a love letter to you?
Oh, well, I didn't take it to them. They came to me. And that's that. That in fact is how I met Eduardo Coto, who I now make a cider named after. And I can remember, and there's a photo of it somewhere of when he came to visit Virtue, I think for the first and only time. And he stood in the tanks.
That told you it all.
And he tasted the Sidra de Nava and spit it on my feet and told me this has nothing to do with Spanish cider at all. That's a quote. This has nothing to do with Spanish cider, and it was humiliating. It was humiliating to me, and to spin it positive, it put me on a quest to correct that over time. And
so that's now why Edu is a kind
that's why Edu is Edu, and it's probably like that. The spitting on the feet eventually turned into throwing a party where we released a previous vintage, and Edu came over. We threw a big party. He's like a celebrity at our cider house, which he didn't know, which was fantastic when he showed up, and everyon knows who Edu is, and
everyone spat on his feet.
Yeah, and like, spit on this man. Right? But he came over. Samuel Trabanco came over for that. It was the first time he ever came to the U.S. I mean, so like that ultimately turned into a motivator and something that I needed to correct it. I wanted to learn. And I guess I sort of looked that in the face and was like, okay, well, I'm going to make this better. And that's turned into, countless visits to Asturias and a whole new group of amazing people that I now know that I miss deeply during this troubling time. Because I definitely plan to have been over there as well. And it's just cider is like created all. I mean, here I am with you guys. I mean, it's don't
blow it up our ass, mate.
I know. Oh my God. I miss you so much. I love you so much.
Let's say this though, but like that's obviously the Edo and everything. That's a love letter to that cider culture. But do you feel that what you're doing at Angry Orchard and collectively as cider makers there, you're creating a cider scene that people then in 10, 20 years will be doing the same thing for?
I don't know, man. I hope so. It's hard to say what American cider culture is. I just, of all people, talked to Reverend Nat yesterday, who I'm assuming you haven't had on the show.
Well, you'd know if you'd listened to them all. So anyway, move on.
We were talking yesterday about essentially what is cider culture in America, and we didn't get anywhere, to be honest, after 2 hours of talking. I sort of felt it when a couple weeks ago I was at Glint Cab. I went Great Lakes International Cider and Perry comp. A lot of familiar faces, a lot of homemakers mixing with professional makers, awards being shared. And I kind of felt like I was in the UK, which makes me think of cider culture. And, Mike Beck, who's sort of the chairman of the board of that comp, made all these awards by hand. And there was something special and unique to it all. But it's also a bit of an echo chamber. It's like all of us getting together and drinking cider and talking about cider. But what about everybody else? And how do we pull them in? And how do we create spaces for people to enjoy it? And certainly we have bars and restaurants that have cider in it. Certainly we have some cider tasting events. I don't know if there's going to be something like an Asturian cider here that's unique to here, that creates culture and has food, essentially built around it and has drinking occasions made for it. I feel like we're always trying to fit into rather than something being made from.
Well, we have
cider.
no apples to compare to your Newtown Pippin.
That's right. That's right. So, and maybe that is a single variety like that is the thing, right? Like we're doing some work right now where we have we planted the same apple varieties across several farms in New York State, from the Hudson Valley all the way out to Western New York. They had a heavy crop in 2020, and we fermented that back at Angry Orchard. So it's grown by various cider makers and growers around the state. And now we're going to sit down and taste all those single variety fermentations, all fermented the exact same way. And we're going to start to build a conversation around terroir and what it looks like and how we talk about it. And so we're going to do professional blind tasting, on the computer.
Wow.
It isn't going to be country bumpkin cider tasting. It's super professional tasting. I know. I'm sorry.
I know it's Gabe's favorite type of tasting.
I know.
Hello. I've got a cider here. It's made from apples.
This isn't going to be that ciderology tasting. This is going to be American statistics.
I learned everything from American Dan Pucci's book.
Yeah.
Was it called American
Cider?
American Cider.
What was it called? American Cider.
It's because you're continental, so you're vast, and so you've got so many sort of differences, and the cultural heritage kind of too. But a lot of what you were saying about that community aspect being wonderful, but also been a bit of the echo chamber. It's exactly the same over here, my friend. You know, there are no great differences. That's just universally a little bit where cider sits in relationship to those other drinks. Certainly, from my perspective, and from a lot of people's perspective, you personally and Angry Orchard are doing as much as possible to try and investigate and answer some of these questions. And Walden. Let's talk about Walden. We haven't got to there yet. Tell us a little bit about what Walden is and why it's so important.
Yeah, well, what I was just telling you about with the tasting, that's certainly like a part of what Walden is. It allows us to do this kind of work, and a lot of it is focused on New York State. And I do think that's like one of the ways to kind of figure out what culture is to focus on a small place and go from there. And so Walden is that. It's a 60-acre orchard. It's been in operation for, 105 years. You know how everyone always says it's like 100 years? It's like 100-year orchard. But then like 10 years later, they're like, it's a 100-year orchard. Well, isn't it a 110-year-old orchard now?
Absolutely.
So it's like a 100-year-old orchard or something like that. 106-year-old orchard.
Doesn't roll off the tongue though, does it?
No, it doesn't.
You've just proved it.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna start lying and skip to 200-year-old orchard.
Yeah.
Over 5,000 years.
It was the first orchard in the world.
Johnny Appleseed planted this orchard.
Oh dear.
So it was in commercial operation for about 100 years, and we bought it from the second generation farmer, Jeff Christ. He planted the trees that were on the farm when we bought it in his 20s. He's now in his 60s, and he is helping us replant that orchard almost entirely to bittersweet and bitter sharp. There's a few sharps and like Northern Spy, Newtown Pippin, that kind of thing, but mostly it's English bittersweet, some French things mixed in, but mostly, my love for cider starts in England when it comes to like what really influenced my palate. And what really got me excited to really want to do this was trips to the UK.
What about the UK? Like, tell us about, as an outsider's perspective, what it is about the UK that you kind of love.
So my first trip ever was for Bath and West, I think. I think that's
sorry. Hang on. What was the name of that competition again?
I'm not going to do that.
So you were talking about the Bath and West show.
No, my first trip was not for Bath and West. Yes, my first trip was to meet with Tom. No, yeah, it was Bath and West, and I met Tom at the same time. So
hang on.
Wait, Tom?
Who's Tom? There's this guy Tom.
Tom Oliver. Does he have a noise? Does he get a noise?
I'll tell you what he has, and this is for listeners at home won't know this, but when you talk to him, his light slowly fades out, so he just disappears into the
darkness.
Every time we've recorded with him, he just disappears slowly. Not even kidding. So he doesn't have a noise. He
gets to turn the light on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I came over for Bath and West and
it's not gonna stop happening.
Meeting Tom with Red Streak, which was the first cider we made at Virtue, and so that trip was like, that was like the end of May, so everything was still very green, and I like immediately fell in love with. And I still feel this way, that it's like the greenest, when you go to Hereford and Somerset, it's like the greenest place on the planet in the springtime. And it's just this like shocking green color. And my climate isn't so different in New York, but although I guess we get a lot of snow, it's actually totally different. But the springtime is relatively similar, and the summertime is relatively similar. And I just never really seen anything like that. And to be fair, it was the first time I ever went to Europe. So I'm just like giving you a couple of these things because it definitely impacted the experience. I was just like so blown away by this experience that I had. And then going to the Bath and West, to go to a place where I could taste 100 ciders, that had never happened to me before. I just tasted a couple ciders, and now there's 100 ciders, and there's a cheese tent, and no one's looking, and you can steal the cheese, and
you can't steal the cheese.
Oh, well, I did.
Don't steal the cheese, everybody.
They invite one American, and he's over there. Oh, no one's looking.
I mean, Ryan, you can steal anything. Technically,
you can steal anything with those looks, baby.
Stealing.
Yeah, you can eat the cheese, I should have said. And so then I'm eating, West Country cheese and drinking West Country cider, and my mind's melting out of my ear. So that was just like, a transcendent experience for me. And I guess it was so impactful to me that it's like motivated me to this day to continue to be involved with what I do. And it makes me come back multiple times every year, and spend weeks and weeks in the UK. And I bring my cider makers over to have that experience. I use that experience to hopefully change people's lives the way that it changed mine. And so it has a special place in my heart. And now that I've got to know it, and I've been, I feel like a couple years ago, I spent like 3 months in England total. It was crazy. To be fair, we also make cider over there.
Do you feel like the UK, like historically, or maybe not historically, but more kind of modern US cider makers talk about the UK and specifically about Bath and West, the show that you mentioned, and like it's. Do you think that's, has that maybe, I don't know, held some cider makers back or stopped the US having its own moment, and now maybe it's starting to happen, like you say, with varieties that are indigenous to the US are starting to get a game now?
I think that's a fair point. Could it do that? I think so. Right. Like, do you bring that back to the US and like kind of do this pastoral farmy thing? I think we'd probably been doing that. I mean, the majority of cider for, 30 years here, starting in the 70s was that, Northeast, the Steve Woods, the Mike Becks, people that have been around it a long time. I would say it was, although those guys went over to the UK too and went to those things and were largely influenced by it, mostly UK varieties, etc. So yeah, I think that it certainly has affected like early adopters of cider making. I don't know. I think our market there's sort of like two things, like you guys, there's two, maybe there's even three cider markets. Oh, well, yeah, right.
Cider.
I mean, there's like the Angry Orchard national market and the other people that play in that market, which are like the Citizens and the Blakes and Two Towns and all of the cider makers that are making more than 1 million gallons now, which is it continues to be a growing number. And then there's the sort of, I hate to use higher end because I just feel like that's like not a good word for cider. When the most expensive
value perception, Ryan. Value perception.
Is that mentioned in Modern British Cider, Gabe?
It is on a number of occasions, as it happens. Very well said, Martin.
When the most expensive bottle of cider is like $40, there's no high end in cider. And so like, farm based, orchard based, single variety, natural fermented, all of that stuff, sort of sits more in like, in the restaurant space. So we have these two, things that are happening in like two different ways that people really imbibe with it. And so there's sort of the just drinking culture in the bars out of cans. And then there's the, more communal based table cider drinking. And then I just don't know. There's just not a lot of like community builds off that I really see, except really small community and small gathering. And we do, very maker focused and, it's kind of like a band and the girlfriends, at the show. It's like a similar thing. It's like there's just we keep just trying to bring more and more people to that side of it.
Can that sustain it though? Like the amount you're making at Walden?
No.
No.
Cool.
Tune in next week to.
So Walden is a place that we try to build this community and culture, and we bring in chefs and we try to put out a vision of what we think cider can be. And what's great about Angry Orchard, and it's another thing that like really drives me to do what I do here, is that I can bring more people to the table, and I can show them things that they otherwise would never see. And so your average Angry Orchard crisp drinker, who's only had that cider and they come to visit us, they have the opportunity to have that cider, and I'm sure they'll have it, but they also have the opportunity to try, naturally fermented, single varietal, orchard based, ciders that are like nothing they've ever had. And so they get to see a spectrum of what cider can be. And I hope when they walk out that, we've changed their palate just a little bit, and maybe they've had it with some good food, and now they're thinking about pairing cider and food. And we really try to push that as that's our mission. We have, you guys have, well, most of you guys have never been there, but Gabe, since you've been there, we finally put in a kitchen. We have,
yes, I can eat finally. I'm
can
always
eat finally.
so hungry.
He hasn't eaten since visiting.
I'm practically wasting
Just
away.
a wilted mustache, just limp pathetically on the laptop. I'm sorry, Gabe. That
It's a bit harsh.
just went harsh.
Yeah.
Bit uncalled for.
So we, that really is like a place for us to like push our vision of what cider can be to as many people as we possibly can, and push the boundaries in every way that we possibly can, and have the ability to fail and, try things that maybe aren't going to sell. I mean, it's definitely like a bit of a, the sort of Willy Wonka thing to it. You guys maybe don't know what that is.
That's a British book,
the
right?
Willy Wonka, the British, super British thing.
Yeah.
Is this a double bluff? Is this like an American elite humor that we're now falling for? No, I want this explained before we move on with the chat. Right. Do you think we don't know what Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is?
No, I know you know.
Okay, good. Because honestly, I feel angry.
I think he was talking to our US listeners there. He was talking to our US listeners. And being a regular on podcasts, Ryan, that's just experience that you're showing there.
Yeah.
What about other cider makers in big cider making community? We were talking about Glint Cap earlier on. 1,561 entries, world's largest cider competition. There's obviously a lot of makers to choose from. Which makers out there do you particularly enjoy the people, enjoy the liquid? Who's up there?
I think I really love Eden cider right now.
We do too.
Yeah, she has a new maker there who's just killing it. And Eleanor herself and her family is just everyone's amazing. And certainly their ice cider is something to be reckoned with, but all of the other cider they're doing now is, I think equally exciting and fun. And I joined their cider club. I've been in their cider club since they opened the doors. So quarterly, I'm always drinking something new from them, and I always really appreciate it. I think I love Sunstrom cider when he's making cider. I don't know if he is right now. He's in the Hudson Valley, sort of more like a wine approach to cider. So it's a little different than what I make and what I generally like, but that's one of the reasons I like it. It's a different take on what's possible. It's a different approach, and he does his approach really very well. So I always enjoy drinking what he has.
Well, we had him on the show.
Oh,
we didn't have him on the show. Sorry, we had a vertical tasting, and
Yeah.
I mean, one of them, Grant's, was a bomb, but They were, they were fucking delicious. They were,
But it was so good it didn't matter. Like,
yeah. But especially for us in the UK, it was almost like you're saying, oh, it's something completely different. It was like 2 leagues ahead in a different direction as to what we would get from UK makers. So it was just another one. Even though we're nerds doing this, we were like, this is something new, which is just to be commended. Definitely.
That's how I always feel about it. And what he's done better than anybody is to not only make it that way, but then get people to believe in what he's doing. So like the way that you just said it, but also if I could make a guess, the finest restaurants in New York, if they pick a cider, they probably pick a Sundstrom cider. It's pretty wild to see it like in the 3 Michelin star restaurant. They have Sundstrom cider, and that's a win for all of us. I just think it's the fucking coolest thing when I see that.
Well, as an eye opener, I remember like one of my first big experiences was I went to Tom Oliver. Went to Tom Oliver's house, but we were having dinner, and it was just like I just fell in love with Herefordshire, and it was such a difference even for me living in the UK to go up and see it. But he brought out a bottle of yours, and I cannot remember the name, but it was like a very off-white label with like a floral, it was like a flower kind of thing or a plant. But he was like, this is what cider can be. And just was delicious and such an eye-opener. But with cider as a whole, do you think you can kind of take it to the next level even again now? Like we've established it as this, but what's next for Angry Orchard?
Yeah. Well, that's a heavy question.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a heavy man.
Yeah. So that cider that you talk about is probably were one of 3 of the first ciders I made for Angry Orchard when I came out from 2015, which are still continue to be super special ciders to me. And then over time, they still taste relatively good. So it's cool to hear you bring them up. As far as what's next in cider, I don't know. It's hard to say. Right now, we're going through a bit of what you're going through, and fruit cider is, what's dominating. We avoided it for as long as we could. And it's just, all the next biggest makers are, had been making fruit cider for years, despite the fact that Angry Orchard wasn't playing in that space. But we essentially have had to. And it's going well, and that's great. And I'm happy that people like it. So I think that's what's next for the foreseeable future. Because it's what's flooded in the marketplace, and every maker behind us on size is pushing that. And that's what's out there. And that's what you're seeing on draft in the bars and at grocery. And it's hard to see past that right now, because I think if people just want full fruity flavor, and I don't mean apples when I say that. And it is sort of, it can be a bit discouraging for like one.
Do you not get disheartened though? Because when I first had your cider, it was like I'd never had pineapple come from apple juice. Like it was mad. So do you feel that that's a bit disheartening? I asked you that question thinking you'd go, oh, well, we've got these things in the pipeline that are good. And you've gone, I think the market's changing, lads.
Here's what I think is what's next for cider. I think what's next for cider is to get the drinking public to understand apples in some way that allows them to appreciate an apple. And I think it's one of the things which is just sort of missing in the way that, and I'm not asking for people to like go down a list in their head of bittersweet and bitter sharp apples, but I would love for people to understand a few varieties the way that they can understand Pinot Noir or Riesling or other known grape varieties. In New York State, Riesling has gone from being, an afterthought to being world-class over the last 10 years. And the industry has done a really good job unifying around a single variety and finding that, putting the time in to understand what's going to grow well in a particular area, growing it well, and then focusing those that choose to grow that grape and grow it well, focusing that industry on promoting that variety in a way that people can understand it, getting it matched with food, and it just sort of unifying around the story and the variety. And it's one thing we haven't quite been able to organize around as an industry. And I don't expect the U.S. industry to do that, but I think a state industry could do that. I think the U.S. I think New York could do that, or I think Michigan could do that around particular varieties. And I think if we make it just a little bit easier for people to understand, and we also deliver a super high quality cider that's fun, that's exciting, that has, a reason to celebrate it once or twice a year, that we can pull people in a new way. And it's a gift to the drinker, because the drinker gets to learn something, that gets to feel good about something, that gets to hold on to it, that gets to talk about it, promote it themselves. I mean, people who are really into these things can, you can sort of define yourself by what you drink and what you eat, and you share that with people, and you get to be an influencer, and to your friends. And I think that's one of the ways that we really can build community, is to make it just a little bit easier for everybody. And no one wants to see a list of 30 fucking bittersweet apples, and nobody cares about what we're talking about. I do. And no, they don't. And we just have to accept that. And it's just it's fine. We can be nerdy about it, but it's not what's going to make the industry grow. It's not what's going to really bring people around. It'll bring a few people around, but it's not going to grow it to the point at which it's sustainable. And so I think what's next is for people for certain parts of the industry to start to rally around a variety, and how we end up at what that variety is probably going to take a lot of time, drinking, and fighting. But
It's easy. It's obvious. Obviously, it's going to be Dimmock Red.
I thought you were going to say Foxwell. You fucking missed.
Oh no! Who cares about Foxwell? Dimmock Red. Come on, Dimmock Red. There we go, Ryan. I think that the focus on the fruit is definitely something that cider can hang its hat on, and just to convey that amazing information. So, thank you so much for joining us on our humble little podcast here. We're so glad that we managed to squeeze you in before your retirement from.
I forgot he's leaving. He's done.
And fermenting marijuana as well. Looking forward to that new venture. Good luck with that. For anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about Angry Orchard, and or the Walden Cider House specifically, where on the internet should people be heading to?
Well, I suppose Instagram, where you have Angry Orchard has its own Instagram, and then Angry Orchard Walden also has one, and then certainly our website, angryorchard.com. Yeah, and of course you could Google Zac Efron and Ryan Burk and watch a glorious 5 minutes of television history.
Momentous. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Good to see you, my friend, and hopefully we'll get you over here maybe for next year's Bath and West show. Good night. And thank you. And now it's time to answer the questions our listeners have put to us. So, Scott, what have we got this week?
We have two, and one of them is from quite a while ago, but I thought it was important, especially because it's definitely I think Grant is the only one that can address it properly. From Diana in the States.
Dirty
and
Diana.
Yes. Grant, you remember a game you had on the show?
No. I don't remember any games because I was steaming for all of them.
This is one you did, and it's about Scottish slang.
Ooh.
So you were the one who built this game. And,
he still doesn't remember.
Tested it.
I do. I listened to it fairly recently.
Yeah. So listener Diana over in the States, she had a listen, and I think she thought she had a pretty good understanding of the Scottish slang and had some guesses. I'm not sure if she's specifically telling you what they are, or she's taking guesses. You can decide based on the tenor of the call. But let's hear from Diana, shall we?
Hey guys, this is so hard to do in 90 seconds, but I've called one other time. But when I heard you were doing the Scottish slang game, I stopped everything and I played along in real time. I didn't cheat or look ahead. My reference for Scottish culture, not my only, but big reference is Still Game, that TV show. And I've seen almost every episode, including the Hogmanay special. So I felt pretty okay about this. Okay, so number one, hochin. That's when you're running fast down an alleyway. And in the sentence, like you're hochin from the cops. And I imagine it was like used in Prohibition times, even though you didn't have Prohibition. Number two, shugel. Shugel is to steal. It means you're stealing something. Number three is bofing. Bofing is fun to say, but bofing is when you throw up. And I know there's something that's saying that's like, take the boke, or you're giving me the boke. And that means like, you're making me want to puke, vomit. Number four, hoolet. Here's what I wrote for hoolet. Hoolet is a turn of the century game that Scottish children played around wartime on cobblestone streets. And it looked very sad and depressing. So rubber ball, sad basket. I don't know, a hoolet. Number five, obviously, tops off. Couldn't be more clear. If it was a snake, it would have bit you. Thank you.
Let's just go straight to Grant. Grant, as our Scottish correspondent on the other side of Hadrian's Wall, what are we saying?
I think she probably would have got 1 point.
I like the idea of the old, oh yeah, I shugled something, so now I'm hooching from the cops.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I mean, she said things with such authority that I started doubting myself. But if anyone is looking to learn about Scottish culture, Still Game is an educational and historical program of reference.
What is it? I don't know anything about it. What is it?
It's a show about old people. A comedy show based on a sketch show from Scotland. It's actually hilarious. It's really funny. I feel like old people are the same most places, right? Maybe not San Diego because they're all out fucking sunbathing and having a great time, but
aren't they doing that in Glasgow?
Anyway.
Bastards.
I mean, they would try,
in taps off weather, they would be.
Weather, yeah. Exactly. See, you were listening.
Nice.
Yeah, Diana. Well, the fact that you joined in the game and didn't take points away from me means you win. And also, since I've been absent for the past few weeks and had a victory stolen from me.
Oh no!
You lost.
I'm gonna put Diana as the winner for that episode's quiz.
Okay,
Diana, to do that because apparently you guys have the power to take them away from me when I'm not here. So Diana, well done. You win that quiz, and whoever won that one loses.
So Diana is drawing with me.
Well, I was going to say, Diana now goes into the lead in terms
straight to the top of the leaderboard. Gold medal for Diana.
She's had one win and no loses. So
exactly.
As long as I don't win, then everything is okay in the world.
He'll burn the house down to see you homeless. That's the image that I'm hearing. But Scott, come on. What's number two?
Some feedback on the show, and I'm glad we're all here to hear it. So this
too much swearing, Gemma. Is it?
Swearing, too much laughter. So this is from Gemma. She's called in before, and here's her speak bite.
Hey guys, this is Gem in Leeds. Sadly, I have no dating advice or geographical or geography questions for Gabe, so sorry about that. I just really wanted to reach out to you all and say thank you. Neutral Cider Hotel has become part of my weekly routine, especially through the various lockdowns that we've encountered and very mundane daily walks. It's been really educational for me. And aside from that, just at times, really bloody hilarious. So, you know, a really great balance, but overall just really great escapism. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you from me. And I really hope we're saying see you soon and not goodbye. But I wish you all the best. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, Gem.
Aw.
What a nice thing to say. Isn't that nice?
Well,
I'm a bit emotional about it.
yeah, Jem, you can't see it, but all of us genuinely touched our heart then in hearing what I thought was going to be a knobby joke. Slowly realize that we meant something to you, and now I feel light and weak.
In a good way.
In a very good way. And genuine.
What cider have you been drinking tonight?
I have been drinking Little Pomona's orange cider, and it is a cracker. No, just hearing that people love it, it doesn't. That doesn't click when you're recording for 4 hours, does it, guys? I'm speaking for myself, but yeah, that just hit home. That
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, lovely.
It's so, yeah. I mean, I think it just started as a little thing that Gabe and I, and then when you joined in, Martin, was just something that I think maybe to entertain ourselves and you know, maybe speak to the bubble that is the cider community, and I think we've maybe burst through it a couple of times, and
we've burst it when we've insulted the Foxwellpians. That's the
oh god, I know. Which was episode 2 or something.
Straight in at the top. If nothing else, we've been part of this really in modern British cider by Gabe Cook. Thank you very much. This is definitely part of cider's expanding bubble, I would say, and it's this really exciting time for cider. That's what was in the book, and Gemma is actually part of that. She is an Instagram blogger, Apple Per Day Cider, and there's so many more people talking about it and posting and celebrating and sharing, and it's. You know, there's as Ryan was talking about. There's a lot of work to do, and who knows exactly what's going to happen, but it's all going in the right direction. And so we've been thoroughly enjoying it. And yeah, you know, this is the beginning of the conversation for cider rather than the end. So, all right. Well, there we go. Thank you everybody for listening to this episode number 43. Thanks to Ryan Burk from Angry Orchard for a fantastic chat and conversation and great insight into the world of US cider. And make sure you tune in to the next episode because we have an incredible guest on the show. They are a music outfit that is wildly popular on both the national and international stages, and they've been mistaken for strangers in the past and accused of having a fake empire. But you'll know them from their apartment stories. So make sure you tune in. It's gonna be awesome. And with season 1 coming to a close, the best way to stay informed on the Neutral Cider Hotel, as always, is to follow us on the social media. We are at Neutral Cider Hotel on Instagram and Facebook, and Neutral Cider Pod on Twitter. And as always, you can visit us on our website to listen to all of our episodes online at neutralciderhotel.com. Lastly, we literally have only a couple of episodes left. So this is Last Chance Saloon. If you want to leave us a message, send comments, send love, send laughter, send those really awkward and annoying questions. Just speak to us at speakpipe.com/Neutral Cider Hotel. This is your chance, people. Just like Gemma, just like Diana, don't miss out. This is it. This is your opportunity. Go for it. Reach for the stars. You can do it. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time. Cheers.